I didn't like the way she treated him. I just got a bad feeling. Christopher always seemed anxious. I didn't believe they were missing. I believed that she was going to punish Chris. That relationship was toxic. He's not the sociopath next door. He's not the psychopath.
What would you say to Shanann's family?
How does Cindy Watts talk about Chris and Shanann's troubled marriage and the crime? What do her words tell us about her perception of Chris? And does this perception correspond with reality? These are the questions this video looks at as Cindy questions her son's plea deal. Welcome to the channel where we look at the language of criminals and influential people. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell for all updates. Welcome, or welcome back. Let's go for it.
There's nothing that would have predicted any of this could have ever happened.
Yeah.
Nothing in his childhood at all. I would have never in a million years thought something like this could happen to him at all.
This excerpt sets the tone for the rest of the interview, with Cindy describing Chris in positive terms and interestingly, as if he's more or less passive, as if things happen to him, as opposed to him being the one who makes things happen, very destructive and cold-hearted things. Firstly, she says any of this, which is generic distancing language for the specific actions Chris has pleaded guilty to. Secondly, she says happened to him. She doesn't mention what happened to his victims. Thirdly, she overemphasizes the alleged absence of signs that this would happen.
At all. I would have never in a million years.
Whether it's intentional or not, this overemphasis anticipates the objection that she and her husband should have noticed something.
When and where did he meet Shanann?
In the following, notice how Cindy's answer deviates from this specific question, which suggests that what's on her mind and what she wants to convey to the audience is her strained relationship with Chris's first victim.
They met and he liked her, she liked him, but it didn't, I don't think it was love at first sight or anything. They took a little while and I guess got to know each other and, dated. It was always a little strange that she always said a lot of things about Chris in front of me that I didn't like.
Cindy was asked about when and where Chris and Shanann met, but she doesn't tell us. Instead, she makes it about her perception of Shanann. This shows just how much this disapproval, or maybe even resentment, was and still is on her mind. And also that this is the perception she wants to convey to the viewers.
He liked her, she liked him, but...
As a conjunction, but minimizes that which preceded it. Here, Cindy minimizes a preceding statement, that Chris and Shanann liked each other. This way, their love story isn't the main focus of the narrative she wants to convey. A protagonist-antagonist framework is forming, one that's made clearer with the following negative descriptions.
Like, this isn't the kind of person I would date. He doesn't know how to do this, or he doesn't know how to do that. He looks like a skater boy. Look at his hair. Look how much stuff he puts on his hair. It was just on and on and on, and I just got a bad feeling.
These descriptions have little or nothing to do with the original question, which reveals that it's the protagonist-antagonist narrative that Cindy wants to get across. However, by her own admission, she knows little about the marriage.
What do you know about their marriage and their issues?
Oh, very little. Very little. You can only observe. I could only observe what I saw when I was around them.
And how often was that?
So how much did you see them over these last 6 years?
Probably twice a year.
It could be argued that seeing them, or seeing anyone twice a year, isn't enough to make judgments about a marriage, because it's relevant to note that Cindy doesn't say that Chris said anything to her about Shanann. These are Cindy's thoughts, not Chris's, so we can't know if Cindy's observations were correct, or if she saw what she wanted to see. Maybe she wanted to see an antagonist. Can't know.
And they got married in 2012. Did they get married in North Carolina?
They did. Mm-hmm.
How was that?
We didn't attend.
Really?
Mm-mm. We didn't attend because Shanann and I just couldn't get along. And I didn't like the way she treated him.
Cindy doesn't say, "I couldn't get along with Shanann," which would make her solely responsible for the divide. She says, "Shanann and I just couldn't get along," implying that both of them were responsible.
I didn't like.
This is a self-repair, a self-correction, the process by which a speaker recognizes a speech error, a problem solves, and corrects what they said. Many times, self-repairs don't have a deeper meaning. In this case, however, and consistent with the previous observations, this particular self-repair suggests that Cindy's disapproval or resentment is ongoing. Conversely, Chris, as the protagonist in the narrative, is attributed with the positive qualities of an innocent person, another one of his victims.
Bella was just like Chris. Just like him, shy, cautious, conservative.
A description that's identical to what Chris likes to think about himself. Strangely enough,
I was the quiet kid. I was I just kind of followed around. My sister was the rebellious one that always,
Like, I'm a good one.
It's like I never like. And my sister was the one that got most of she was the one that showed me that's what I don't want to do.
Right.
Tell us about the time you spent with her.
Well, I mean, it felt like it was, I think, like when you said, I was more like a shy guy, it's kind of like I've never, been pursued by anybody before. It's kind of like I was the one,
by taking on the role of the quiet and shy guy that Cindy emphasizes in this interview, Chris is conveniently passive. Things happen to him. He's not the one instigating things.
I would have never in a million years thought something like this could happen to him.
This role functions as a shield and also as a mask, because being shy isn't exactly Chris's primary defining characteristic. Lack of guilt, conscience, and emotions in general are traits that we don't typically attribute to shy people, but to psychopathic people.
Last night, I had every light in the house on. I was hoping that I would just get ran over by the kids running in the door and just barrel rushing me, but it didn't happen. And it was just a traumatic night trying to be here. It was tearing me apart last night. It's just earth shattering. I don't feel like this is even real right now. It's like a nightmare that I just can't wake up from. I think she got it off Amazon, but this is my favorite college sports team. I like these shirts a lot.
Christopher always seemed anxious, and he when she needed something, he would run. He wouldn't walk, he would run, he would get it. He just always seemed to be right there at her beck and call.
We can't know if he was anxious. That's Cindy's interpretation, and some would say that it's a result of wishful thinking. However, what's relevant is that Chris decided to marry and stay in the marriage. Also, there's a lot that indicates that Chris was fully aware of his qualities.
with her medications and stuff, I would always, she had 8 bottles of medications, so I would always get her day and nights and kind of put them all in that little, flip open the pill box. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. And I would always, be around her. I even went to her colonoscopy. And she said after that, she knew that was kind of a keeper. It's who goes to a colonoscopy after 3 months with somebody? Right.
That's a little soon.
Well, she asked if she needed that ride. I'm like, yeah. She's like, you want to go colonoscopy with me? I'm like, sure, why not?
Chris depicts himself as someone who made sacrifices for Shanann, with the rhetorical question,
who goes to a colonoscopy after 3 months with somebody? Right.
Chris implies that no one would do what he did, but instead of saying that, he says it in form of a question, making it sound less self-glorifying, but the intention is the same. However, when it's convenient for him to do so, like when providing some sort of justification for his affair with Nicole Kessinger, he criticizes or implies criticism of his wife.
Me and Shanann met, it was she was always pushing me away, kind of
So then with Nikki, was it different?
It just seemed like I was more in control, it seemed like, and that never happened. And, she'd actually asked me my opinion on a lot of things and just what I wanted to do, and just kind of okay.
That was new, wasn't it?
Very new.
So was Chris anxious? That question seems irrelevant compared to the other things he was and is. Things are characteristics that he's now in prison for. However, in the following, Cindy keeps underlining the protagonist-antagonist framework when it comes to Chris and Shanann's marriage.
Tell me what happened when they were reported missing. What did you find out? How did you find out? Who told you?
I think Ronnie called me. I thought, I don't believe it. I didn't believe they were missing. I believed that she was going to punish Chris. She was just going to punish him, take the girls, and just punish him. I had no idea of anything else.
She, Cindy says, not Shanann. This is distancing language. This and the fact that she presupposed this punishment speak volumes about Cindy's disapproval and or resentment, especially because she repeats her alleged suspicion several times, making sure that the viewers don't miss it.
I was not worried. I just thought Shanann had run off with girls. I was not worried. You know, I thought she has just gone off and I'm going to punish you for this. I had no idea of anything else.
Cindy's protagonist-antagonist framework is the reason why she had no idea of anything else. To her, Chris is shy, cautious, and conservative, when in reality, he has dangerous personality traits. In that sense, reality ruined the image she had of her son, an image that Chris has since tried to live up to. In one of his letters to Cindy, Chris writes that he's still a dad, still a son, and that he can now add servant of God to that mix, as if his victims would still want to be associated with him. Also, in the prison interview, it's made clear that Chris uses his newfound belief for self-benefit, to judge people for defining him by one moment in time as he downplays his horrific crime.
There was one church service, the only one I've been able to go to in here, and it said, "Do not define by one moment in your life." And I think that's like, people are defining me by one moment in my life. They don't know like what happened before or what can happen later. So I just hope that, hopefully one day people can stop judging everybody.
Chris is proficient at making people believe that he's nice and virtuous. However, when we look deeper, he seems to always have ulterior motives, self-serving motives. His mask of being shy and cautious is how he's been able to deceive people throughout his life.
I've always had a really crazy imagination. So like when I was a kid, like I even convinced my teacher I went to Japan over the summer or to China or something.
Why did you convince your teacher you had gone to another country?
It was just like what you did over the summer, and I was like, I went to China. I just started writing. And she actually believed it. I was really convincing.
So you're a smart dude.
Yeah. It was, and they, like, parent-teacher conference said, "So how was China?" What? Nope.
The next clip speaks volumes about Cindy's perception of Chris, and thus the perception she wants the audience to have of him.
No letter writing. I didn't see the harm in the letters. Hi son, love you, keep fighting. Why couldn't we just write him a letter? They wouldn't let us talk to him about anything. And then we had to talk to him through a screen and a phone. And he just looked, he was crying. I mean, he wasn't crying. You could see the movement in his mouth that when I talked about Bella and I talked about Cece and the memorial service that we had for them. And he asked what pictures did we use, and what was the song. You can see how he was trying to hold back tears.
Cindy speaks as if this is supposed to be touching and relatable, as if she's talking about an innocent father who's lost his children, another father who's already pleaded guilty. She attributes the one thing Chris couldn't reliably fake to him: emotions. Chris, however, talks about emotions as a tactic.
I know, like, even my attorneys told me, like, you need to show a little more emotion, because I guess first time I went to the courtroom, I didn't know what to expect. They said I was just a cold person, just looking at me.
It's impossible to trust Chris's emotional outbursts, from the situation Cindy's describing to his performance in court.
Well, could you talk a little bit about some things we talked about yesterday? You said, I think your exact words were, he's not the psychopath next door.
He isn't. He's not the sociopath next door. He's not the psychopath. And I think he felt a little bit more comfortable in his skin, and he just, I don't think he just had the right person at his side. I don't. That relationship was toxic from the very beginning.
The perspective here is relevant to note. She was asked to elaborate on Chris not being the psychopath next door, and ends up saying that she doesn't think he just had the right person by his side. Along with the oversimplifying adverb just, this minimizes Chris' responsibility, and once again underlines his role as the protagonist in Cindy's narrative about the marriage. An unfortunate side effect of this is that someone could interpret this as Cindy suggesting that Chris acted in response to a toxic relationship that made him anxious, or could have acted because Cindy still doubts Chris's guilt, even though he's already pleaded guilty.
What would you say to Shanann's family if you could talk to them?
This is a 5-second turn initial delay, indicating that a question is problematic. Compare this response time to her previous response time.
Yeah, I think your exact words were, he's not the psychopath next
He
door.
isn't.
Apparently, it's easier for her to reject that Chris is a psychopath than to say something to Shanann's family. The main reason why this question is difficult is that it flies in the face of the protagonist-antagonist framework in Cindy's narrative and her agenda with this interview. What do you say to the antagonist's family without admitting too much or being too sorry? You say this:
God, I'm so sorry this happened. You know, for both our families, because we both lost everything. You know, they lost a daughter, we lost our son. We lost our grandchildren. We all lost. Everybody did. And you'll never get it back. And they were precious. They were so, so precious.
Overall, this isn't a real apology.
God, I'm so sorry this happened.
This what? This is distancing language. The verb happened doesn't hold anybody accountable, even though this is the kind of thing that doesn't just happen. Someone made it happen, and that someone is the good kid.
And he was a good kid.
Twice she says "you know," which indicates that she's acutely aware of the interviewer's presence.
You know.
This expression implies shared knowledge, even though the interviewer doesn't know. That's why he's asking. This, coupled with the turn initial delay, suggests that this is a difficult question to answer, because in order for her narrative to work and to succeed with her agenda, she has to balance a certain amount of admissions with cautious, self-protective language. She quickly makes it about her and her husband as well,
For both our families.
by using the same verb, lost, in both sentences.
They lost a daughter, we lost our son.
Cindy equates the loss of Shanann to the imprisonment of Chris. However, the loss is not the same. One is alive and one isn't. She says "a daughter" when talking about Shanann's family, but she says "our son." "A" is an indefinite article, distancing language, unlike the proper pronoun "their." That's it for now. Be sure to like and subscribe for more videos. See you next time.
And she actually believed it. I was really convincing.